As the young apothecary strolled through the bustling city streets, he decided to pay a visit to the local shopkeeper. Little did he know that the shopkeeper had encountered a new predicament. A battered elf, who had clearly suffered from vicious abuse, had been unceremoniously dumped on him. The shopkeeper, being a compassionate soul, couldn't bear the thought of keeping her. After all, she wasn't just another discarded item like the rest of the things he sold. She was a living being in need of care and nourishment. He confided in the apothecary, attempting to highlight her potential usefulness by appealing to his medicinal expertise. It seemed that, in the world of medicine, the elf could be utilized in various ways, potentially bringing in substantial profits. The elf can be chopped up and used in drugs, and he can make a lot of profit by cutting up this ragged elf who is good for nothing else. However, the apothecary knew that there was more to this ragged elf than just her potential for profit. Upon closer inspection, the apothecary realizes that the elf's condition is far worse than he initially thought. It became evident that she has lost her vision in both eyes and physically lost one of them. The rest of her body bears the cruel marks of a whip, and her nails have been brutally ripped off. It's a heartbreaking sight, and the apothecary can't help but wonder what kind of monster would subject this poor elf to such torture. Although her vision is gone, her hearing remains intact. This realization only strengthens the apothecary's resolve. He cannot simply turn a blind eye to her suffering. His dedication to the healing arts and his compassion for humanity won't allow him to walk away as if he hadn't seen anything. He knows that if he doesn't step in to protect and treat her, she may face even greater dangers in the future. She could be bought and sold countless times, subjected to unimaginable abuse that could ultimately lead to her death or permanent disfigurement. The apothecary understands the weight of his decision. He knows that by intervening, he is taking on a responsibility that may come with its own risks. But he also knows that he cannot ignore the call of his conscience. With determination in his eyes, he vows to do whatever it takes to heal her wounds, both physical and emotional. This poor elf deserves a chance at a better life, and the apothecary will be the one to provide it. The apothecary looked worried as he thought hard about what to do next. His face showed that he was struggling with himself. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. He had to make a decision quickly. After all, how much space would a little elf, who seemed tired and hurt, really need? He lived all by himself, so his house had plenty of room for her. While he was thinking, the elf started to say something, but her words were all mixed up, and he couldn't understand her. Maybe she had been through so much pain that she couldn't talk properly anymore, only able to make sounds when she was really upset. Soft whispers could be heard as the elf mouthed the words "go" and "home." The shopkeeper felt uneasy. He wanted to finalize the deal quickly. It was as if he saw the elf as nothing more than another item in his shop. That's why he set the price for her as low as he would for selling livestock. This made the apothecary even more concerned. He realized that nobody would treat the elf with care or respect if even the shopkeeper saw her as just an object to be bought and sold. It seemed like nobody would see her as a living, breathing person, but rather just as a tool to be used and discarded. The young apothecary couldn't bear to see the elf being sold off to someone who might mistreat her. With a determined expression in his eyes, he confronted the heartless shopkeeper. He declared that he would buy her for a higher price, stating that the parts he needed for his medicines were in good condition. His willingness to pay more than the asking price hinted at his respect for the elf. He didn't want her to feel worthless. However, he insisted that the purchase remain a secret. He didn't want the whole city to know that a young apothecary from a nearby village had bought an elf. While it could bring him a lot of business, with everyone wanting medicines made from elf parts, he didn't want to profit from her suffering. He wanted to protect her dignity and ensure she wasn't exploited further. The shopkeeper was relieved to get rid of the elf. She meant nothing to him, and he was glad to be done with her. Meanwhile, the apothecary asked for some items to make transporting her easier. He requested clean clothes, a belt, some twine, and a wooden pack frame. The elf remained completely unresponsive throughout, not reacting even when he changed her clothes, wrapped her with the belt, and secured her to the wooden pack frame. It seemed that carrying her like this was the only way to protect her from the curious stares of others. As they set out on their journey, the apothecary couldn't predict what fate had in store for them. However, he was certain of one thing: he had rescued her, and now he was determined to save her life as well. With determination in his heart, they ventured forth into the unknown, hoping for a brighter future for the elf he had taken under his care. After traveling for a considerable distance, the apothecary and the elf decided to take a short break to rest. The apothecary needed to give his shoulders and weary body a break after carrying her for so long. Yet, despite his own fatigue, he didn't mind taking a moment to observe her as she relaxed amidst the serenity of nature. As they rested, he noticed a subtle change in her demeanor. The lines of worry on her face seemed to soften, and her features appeared slightly more at ease, even though her expression still betrayed a lingering fear. It was as if the tranquil surroundings were slowly soothing her troubled spirit, offering a brief respite from the hardships they had endured. The apothecary couldn't be certain, but he had a sinking feeling that the elf had been sold off once more. The uncertainty of her future filled her with fear and confusion. She didn't know what awaited her with her new owner, and that uncertainty only heightened her apprehension. Despite her fear, the elf was no stranger to nature. Being an elf meant she was accustomed to living in harmony with the forests, but traversing this mountainous road may have seemed like a departure from her familiar surroundings. Nevertheless, her presence still held a hint of magic in the forest. The little elf's eyes filled with tears as the kind elf quickly fed her a spoonful of hot soup. Maybe she was crying because it was the first time someone had fed her with such care, especially since she was used to being treated poorly as a slave. Or perhaps, the food was just too spicy. As the night stretched on, the girl started feeling feverish. She was probably feeling overwhelmed and tired, not used to the cold night air that surrounded that campsite. The apothecary was deeply concerned about the girl's overall health. He feared that the infection in her wounds might worsen, possibly leading to the amputation of some of her limbs. It wasn't fair that she should suffer such consequences, especially when none of it was her fault. Life had been incredibly unfair to her, and he couldn't bear to see her lose any more. His protective instincts towards her were new and unfamiliar, but they burned fiercely within him, urging him to do everything in his power to keep her safe. The apothecary got to work, drawing on all his knowledge and the organic ingredients he had gathered. With careful precision, he prepared a simple yet potent antibacterial drink for the girl. Luckily, he had recently stocked up on supplies during a visit to the city. As he gently poured the drink into her mouth, he anxiously waited for it to take effect. Despite her mumbling, he noticed her breathing becoming calmer, a sign that the treatment was working. With relief flooding through him, he realized that treatment number 1 was a success. Exhausted from the long and grueling day, he finally allowed himself to close his eyes and drift into a dreamless sleep. The apothecary woke up to find the girl already awake. Eagerly, he tried to engage her in conversation, hoping to learn more about the elf he had taken under his care. Despite his efforts, all he received in response were soft mumbles. He longed for her to speak, to share her thoughts and feelings with him. He wondered if she was hungry or if she felt any better or if she could even hear him. But no matter how hard he tried, not a single word escaped her lips. They had been together for almost a day now, yet there hadn't been a single meaningful conversation between them. Feeling a sense of desperation, the apothecary searched for a way to break through to her. In a final attempt, he decided to give her a name, Resser, a name filled with hope and promise of healing. But still, she remained unresponsive. Disheartened, the apothecary realized that he had missed his chance. Despite his efforts and his hopes, Resser remained silent, trapped in her own world of silence and mystery. The apothecary couldn't help but wonder if Resser could understand him, or if she would ever regain enough strength to remember her original name. Only time would tell. Yet, despite the uncertainty, he found solace in the fact that she was no longer nameless. Giving her a name was the first step in making her realize that she deserved far better treatment than what she had endured. As they continued their journey down the winding road, the apothecary spotted the first sign indicating their destination. Finally, they arrived at the village where his workshop awaited. The long journey had come to an end, marking the beginning of a new chapter filled with challenges and uncertainties. For both the apothecary and Resser, this journey was just the beginning of a longer and more arduous one. Together, they would face whatever trials lay ahead, supporting each other through the hardships that awaited them in the days to come. Upon reaching the workshop, the apothecary's first priority was to give Resser a bath. Despite her lack of a foul odor, he knew that improving her hygiene would greatly benefit her. It was evident that she had likely gone without a bath for months, if not years. With gentle care, he assisted her in undressing, noting her lack of reaction. He wondered if she was devoid of feeling or maybe she had shut down her emotions entirely, a defense mechanism against the cruelties she had endured. As he removed her torn clothes, the apothecary was confronted with a sight that made his heart ache. He saw the scars on her back for the first time, enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Countless wounds marred her delicate white skin, each one a testament to the ruthless treatment she had suffered. Trying to calm his racing thoughts, the apothecary focused on the task at hand, changing Resser's bandages. Yet, despite his efforts, he couldn't hide the trembling of his hands, a clear sign of his inner turmoil. With painstaking care, he gently applied the herbal ointment he had prepared onto her wounds, carefully covering them with special leaves to prevent any lasting marks on her delicate skin. He knew that he needed to change her bandages every few days to ensure proper healing of her external wounds. While he hoped that this treatment would help her physical wounds mend, he couldn't shake the heavy weight of knowing that her mental scars ran much deeper. For now, all he could do was provide her with the care and comfort she desperately needed, hoping that with time, both her physical and emotional wounds would begin to heal. In a moment of realization, the apothecary remembered that he had forgotten to purchase clothes for Resser. Panic briefly gripped him before he composed himself with a determined resolve. As the beloved apothecary of the village, he knew he could rely on his network of friendships for assistance. Without hesitation, he set out to visit a friend's house, intent on calling in some favors from the generous souls in the village. However, he wasn't one to arrive empty-handed. With thoughtful consideration, he had gifts in mind to offer in exchange for their help. With a sense of gratitude, the apothecary visited his friend's house and explained his predicament. Understanding the situation, his friend readily offered some old clothes for Resser, happy to assist in any way possible. In exchange for this generous gesture, the apothecary presented the gifts he had brought along, ensuring that both parties left feeling satisfied with the fair deal. Returning to his workshop with the new clothes in hand, the apothecary was met with the stirring of Resser from her nap. As he dressed her in the fresh clothes and gently combed her hair, a sense of warmth filled him. For the first time, she truly looked like a girl, adorned in clean garments, and with her hair neatly arranged. If this was the first time Resser had experienced such care, it was also a novel experience for the apothecary himself. As he watched her, looking much better than when he had first found her, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. As the weight of exhaustion pressed down on him, the apothecary finally realized just how sleep-deprived he had been over the past 2 days. Despite the progress he had made with Resser, he knew he deserved a few hours of much-needed rest. Suppressing his overwhelming drowsiness, he focused on feeding Resser her dinner. However, halfway through the meal, Resser began trembling, causing the apothecary to worry if she was feeling too cold or too hot. It dawned on him that she hadn't relieved herself in 2 days, a realization that struck him deeply. His preoccupation with her scars had inadvertently deprived her of her basic needs. Carrying Resser to the bedroom after dinner, the apothecary empathized with her struggle of having to consume liquid foods constantly. He understood that her teeth were in no condition to chew solid food, prompting him to consider the possibility of acquiring dentures for her. Moreover, he contemplated the option of using a high potion, which could physically recover her body but at the cost of reducing her lifespan due to its increased metabolism. Despite the risks, his dedication to his duty as her caretaker drove him to consider every possible solution. Lost in his thoughts, the apothecary drifted off to sleep, his mind still occupied with ways to improve Resser's condition. Unbeknownst to him, Resser lay nearby, her one eye open as she observed the apothecary, who snored softly in his slumber. The apothecary woke up with a start, realizing he had fallen asleep unexpectedly the night before. As he rubbed the sleep from his eyes, he saw Resser, his patient, sitting wide awake on the bed. It dawned on him that he had neglected his field for a few days. Since he grew the plants for his medicines himself, he knew he had to get back to work right away. Gently, he helped Resser sit outside so she could soak up the warm sunlight. He returned to his field, determined to make up for lost time. As he toiled away, he heard soft sobs in the distance. It was Resser crying quietly. He felt a pang of sadness but didn't know how to comfort her. He was just a man, like those who had captured her. Emotions weren't his strong suit, especially with someone who had suffered so much. So he kept working, hoping his presence would bring her some solace, even if he couldn't offer much else. As the day wore on, Resser's tears eventually dried up. The apothecary continued his work until the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. He knew there was still much to be done, but for now, he had done what he could to help, even if it was just by being there. The apothecary had to reopen his store to make ends meet, ensuring there was enough food for both himself and his patient, Resser. One day, as he was tending to his shop, a young girl named Monet appeared at his door. Monet was the daughter of a friend who had provided clothes for Resser. Usually, Monet came by for errands, but today she was driven by sheer curiosity. In her innocent wonder, Monet wanted to see if the rumors were true, if there really was an elf in the apothecary's workshop. Seeing no harm in indulging her curiosity, the apothecary welcomed Monet inside. Her eyes widened with excitement when she saw Resser seated there, a real-life elf. Bursting with questions, Monet's childlike curiosity took over as she bombarded Resser with queries, eager to learn more about this mystical creature. As Resser remained silent under Monet's playful interrogation, the apothecary found himself taking on the role of her spokesperson, answering each question to the best of his ability. He wasn't entirely sure how accurate his responses were, but he knew that silence wasn't an option. Meanwhile, he busied himself with a special project, hoping to create something that would bring a smile to Resser's face. Though he doubted its quality, he reasoned it was better than nothing. Suddenly, Resser found herself adorned with a flower crown, courtesy of Monet's playful whims. The sight made Monet giggle, as she playfully declared Resser to be the apothecary's bride. The word bride caught the apothecary off guard, and he quickly dismissed the notion, explaining to Monet that Resser was simply his patient. Yet, he couldn't help but feel grateful for Monet's warmth and childlike innocence, which brought some joy to Resser's otherwise somber existence. Despite knowing that Resser's chances of regaining her sight were slim, the apothecary remained determined to help her. He had some drops that might aid in her recovery, though he understood that it would take time. In the meantime, he resolved to care for her skin and administer the eye drops diligently, hoping for even a small improvement in her condition. Ensuring Resser had nourishing and easily digestible food was a top priority for the apothecary. He carefully prepared meals that would be gentle on her stomach, knowing that proper nutrition was crucial for her health. Additionally, he made sure to give her regular massages and repositioned her to improve blood circulation, understanding the importance of keeping her comfortable and mobile. Meanwhile, he diligently worked on crafting her dentures, consulting library books to ensure he got the sizing just right. Resser endured days of adjustments as he fine-tuned the fit, but she bore it with patience, trusting in his expertise. Finally, after much effort, the apothecary succeeded in creating the perfect set of teeth for Resser. It was a moment of triumph for him, as he could finally cross this task off his list. Feeling the weight of Resser's worsening condition, the apothecary knew he couldn't face this challenge alone. Reluctantly, he reached out to a friend for help, recognizing that it was the only option left on the table. As he pondered the implications of seeking assistance, his thoughts were interrupted by the unexpected arrival of the local cattleman. Grateful for the apothecary's assistance with his lower back troubles, the cattleman had come bearing a gift of meat as a token of his appreciation. Touched by the gesture, the apothecary accepted the offering graciously. He knew that preserving a portion of the meat would provide sustenance for the days to come, while cooking the rest would offer a comforting meal for himself and Resser. As the apothecary pondered how to seek help for Resser, he decided to reach out to an old friend. With limited options for communication, he relied on the messenger crow, knowing its swift flight could deliver his message with speed. With a sense of hope, he released the crow into the sky, carrying his plea for assistance. Days passed, and the apothecary and Resser resumed their routine while they awaited a response. Amidst the quiet, Monet's visits brought some joy to Resser, and the apothecary noticed signs of her responsiveness returning, a glimmer of progress in her recovery. However, their hopes were shattered when Resser suddenly fell ill, her condition deteriorating rapidly. Fever, spasms, bloodshot eyes, and redness on her chest indicated a grave sickness. Drawing on his knowledge, The apothecary recognized the symptoms as those caused by the bite of an obsidian spider, a venomous creature. Watching Resser coughing up blood, he realized with horror that she had been poisoned, the effects slowly ravaging her body. Determined to save her, the apothecary sprang into action, his mind racing as he sought a cure for the deadly poison coursing through Resser's veins. Time was of the essence as he worked tirelessly, praying for a miracle to spare Resser from a tragic fate. As the apothecary raced against time to save Resser from the deadly venom of the obsidian spider, his mind raced with thoughts of who could be behind such a cruel act. With no concrete knowledge of the creature in the village and limited awareness among city folk, suspicion fell upon one person, Resser's previous owner. Realizing the urgency of the situation, the apothecary wasted no time. He swiftly cleansed Resser's stomach, administering herbs known for their detoxifying properties. With each dose, he urged her to cling to life, refusing to let go under any circumstances. In a moment of grim discovery, a pill-shaped object emerged from Resser's body, coated in gastric juices. However, it wasn't a medical pill at all. Instead, it was a thick husk adorned with ancient writing and a curse mark. The apothecary's heart sank as he realized the sinister nature of the object. It seemed that Resser's previous owner had cast a malevolent curse upon her, a haunting reminder of the suffering she had endured. Reflecting on Resser's journey, from the depths of her injuries to the venom now coursing through her veins, the apothecary vowed to fight for her survival with every ounce of strength he possessed. Determined to defy the cruel intentions of her past, he resolved to give Resser the chance at a new life, free from the shadows of her dark past. As the apothecary struggled to contain the boiling rage within him, a fierce determination took hold. With Resser's life hanging in the balance, he knew he had no choice but to push aside his emotions and focus on his duty as a healer. Gathering his resolve, the apothecary set out into the wild in search of the elusive ingredients needed to concoct the antidote. It was a perilous journey, fraught with danger at every turn, but he pressed on, fueled by the urgency of Resser's plight. Along the way, he enlisted the help of Monet and her mother Annette, entrusting them with the care of Resser in his absence. They readily agreed, understanding the gravity of the situation. Before departing, the apothecary imparted instructions to Monet and Annette on how to tend to Resser should her condition worsen. He provided them with the knowledge and tools they would need to support her in his absence, their determination matching his own. After 2 days of arduous searching, the apothecary returned triumphant, his arms laden with the precious ingredients needed to create the antidote. With steady hands he set to work, combining the dragon fawn, herbs, and a small amount of the spider's venom to form the life-saving injection. With each careful step, he drew closer to the moment of truth, where the antidote would be the difference between life and death for Resser. And though his heart still burned with fury at the cruelty inflicted upon her, the apothecary remained steadfast in his commitment to heal, to save, and to protect. As the apothecary ventured into the wilderness to gather the crucial ingredients, each passing moment weighed heavily on his mind. Though his absence from Resser's side was far from ideal, he knew it was a sacrifice necessary to save her life. With every step, he prayed that she was holding on, that she was finding the strength to endure. Thanks to the attentive care of Annette and Monet, Resser's condition remained stable in the apothecary's absence, and when he finally returned with the precious antidote in hand, a wave of relief washed over him. With steady hands, he administered the injection, placing a reassuring hand on Resser's shoulder as he assured her that she needn't fear death, for healing was on its way. In the depths of her despair, Resser heard a voice calling out to her, offering solace and hope amidst the darkness. With renewed determination, she found the strength to fight back against the suffocating grip of despair. With trembling hands, she reached out to the kind presence, knowing deep within her heart that it was her best chance at escape. As she grasped onto the outstretched arm, a sense of warmth enveloped her, pushing back against the shadows that threatened to consume her. And in that moment, as she opened her one good eye, she was greeted with a sight she had long thought lost to her: light. After an eternity spent in darkness, Resser finally glimpsed the promise of a new beginning, a beacon of hope illuminating her path forward. With the miraculous success of the antidote, Resser's recovery surpassed all expectations. Not only did she regain consciousness, but to the astonishment of all, she began to speak. And even more astonishing was the return of some of her eyesight, allowing her to discern between light and darkness once more. The apothecary marveled at the unexpected turn of events, attributing the restoration of her vision to the potent blend of ingredients in the antidote, drawn from the wilds of the surrounding countryside. Filled with gratitude for Resser's remarkable recovery, the apothecary couldn't help but feel a twinge of confusion. Despite her newfound ability to communicate, Resser remained elusive when it came to sharing details about herself. Questions about her origins, her hometown, and even her name were met with evasive responses, leaving the apothecary puzzled and uncertain. Though he longed to understand the mystery surrounding Resser's past, the apothecary recognized the importance of patience and respect. As Resser struggled to piece together fragments of her lost memories, the apothecary recognized the weight of her past burdens. Seeing her haunted by the shadows of her former life as a slave, he understood that dwelling on the past would only hinder her journey towards healing and renewal. With a resolve to nurture a brighter future for Resser, he resolved to cease dwelling on the past and instead encourage her to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow. As Resser expressed her gratitude in broken words and a fragile voice, her hope for a better future echoed through the room, touching the apothecary's heart in ways he had never experienced before. Her resilience in the face of adversity, her determination to move forward despite the scars of her past, ignited a flame of admiration within him. Reflecting on the profound impact Resser had on his life, the apothecary couldn't help but marvel at the depth of their connection. In her presence, he found a sense of purpose and renewal, a reminder of the transformative power of compassion and empathy. Before he could dwell further on these newfound emotions, a local farmer arrived bearing yet another gift, a massive pumpkin. As he graciously accepted the offering, the apothecary couldn't help but smile. As the apothecary prepared to cook the massive pumpkin, Annette and Monet intervened with concern, noticing the exhaustion etched on his face. Despite his initial resistance, they insisted he take a well-deserved break and rest. As a man of science, he knew the importance of self-care, yet his dedication to Resser's recovery often pushed him beyond his limits. Grateful for their care and understanding, the apothecary relented, allowing himself to be guided away from his workbench. Meanwhile, Annette and Monet took charge, transforming the pumpkin into a delicious pie to celebrate Resser's remarkable recovery. And though he couldn't resist the urge to oversee their efforts, the apothecary found solace in the joyous atmosphere surrounding him. As they gathered around the table, Resser's lively chatter filled the room, her laughter ringing out like music. Gone was the sadness that once clouded her eyes, replaced by a newfound lightness and joy. Her delight in the pumpkin pie uplifted everyone's spirits, a testament to the healing power of good company and simple pleasures. Watching Resser flourish in the warmth of their companionship, the apothecary couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. In her laughter and smiles, he saw the promise of a brighter future, where she could embrace life fully and leave the darkness of her past behind. As they shared in this moment of celebration, the apothecary couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps the trials of the past were nothing more than a fleeting nightmare, soon to be replaced by the warmth of a new dawn. The apothecary decided to focus on helping Resser with her body first, putting her physical well-being as the main concern for now. It was important to get his priorities straight at this moment. Just when he made this decision, a crow, a bird he hadn't seen in a long time and used to deliver messages, suddenly appeared. It carried a response from his friend, who was also a skilled healer. The reply was a bit strange, as his friend agreed to help Resser but not without a cost. This puzzled the apothecary, but he understood that everyone values their skills and deserves to be compensated for their work. Besides, he had no other choice if he wanted Resser's limbs to heal. Despite the odd wording, the apothecary knew his friend was an excellent healer. He decided not to worry about paying him just yet, trusting that his friend would be willing to extend credit to him. With this assurance in mind, he began making plans to travel to the north, where his friend lived. Furthermore, the apothecary couldn't risk Resser catching a chill on the journey. With that in mind, he resolved to handle the shopping alone, knowing that her presence in the city would undoubtedly draw unwanted attention. Moreover, he recalled how he had deceived the old shopkeeper during his last visit by claiming he had sold Resser to another doctor. It was clear that he couldn't simply show up with her by his side now, as it would tarnish his reputation and possibly cause trouble with the shopkeeper. As the apothecary wandered through the bustling city streets, he found himself navigating the world of women's clothing stores. While purchasing garments wasn't particularly suspicious, selecting undergarments was a whole different story. He felt a wave of discomfort wash over him as he awkwardly tried to explain his purchases to the curious shopkeepers. Despite his attempts to pass off the items as gifts for a female relative, he could sense the disbelief in their eyes. Even if they bought his story, he knew he'd never shake off the memory of their strange stares. Desperate to escape the awkwardness, he focused on loading his horse with the bags of clothes and provisions. The added weight slowed the horse's pace, but determinedly, he urged it forward, eager to return to his workshop. Despite the burden of the day's events, he finally made it back, relieved that the ordeal was over. As the morning of their departure dawned, a chill hung in the air, but the apothecary felt grateful for the warm coats they had acquired. Without them, they might have frozen in the biting cold. Resser adorned the white garments he had purchased for her, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as they fit her perfectly. Around her neck she wore a necklace embedded with a magical sensor, a crucial tool for keeping track of her whereabouts. However, a pang of sadness struck the apothecary as he realized that Resser couldn't fully appreciate her new attire with her impaired eyesight. He vowed silently that one day, her eyes would light up with joy at the sight of herself, and he was determined to make it happen. Their plan for the day seemed straightforward enough: journey northward for half a day, traverse a forest, and head towards the nearest portal location. But the reality was more challenging. Resser, unable to walk long distances, relied on him to carry her the entire way. She expressed her apologies for the burden she placed on him, but he reassured her that her weight was nothing compared to the heavy ingredients he often had to carry. As the apothecary and the elf continued their journey, they found themselves trudging along for half a day without making much headway. The apothecary, mindful of the dangers lurking in their path, proceeded cautiously, choosing safer routes that slowed their progress. However, with darkness approaching, they knew they had to pick up the pace if they didn't want to be stranded on the road for longer than anticipated. Feeling the strain of carrying Resser and their heavy load of emergency supplies, the apothecary decided it was time to set up camp for the night. Finding a suitable spot, he began making preparations, his mind preoccupied with the realization that this was the first moment of solitude they had shared since he cured her of the poison. As they worked together to set up their camp, the apothecary couldn't help but feel a sense of closeness with Resser. As they settled into their campsite, the apothecary and Resser found themselves in a rare moment of peace. Sensing an opportunity to foster their budding relationship, Resser initiated the conversation by asking the apothecary his name. It dawned on her that despite spending considerable time together, she still didn't know what to call him. Not quite ready to reveal his name, the apothecary hesitated momentarily before suggesting she refer to him as apothecary, explaining that it was his profession. Resser, sensing his reluctance to reveal more, accepted his response without further inquiry, addressing him as Mr. Apothecary. As the apothecary observed Resser's acceptance without further probing, a wave of relief washed over him. He harbored concerns about her delving deeper into personal matters, fearing the attachment that might form between them. After all, their relationship was meant to be transient, lasting only until he had healed her and she returned to her own realm. With the arrival of the next morning, they wasted no time in packing up their camp and resuming their journey. Walking through the dense forest toward the portal location, their spirits lifted with the realization that an end to their arduous road was finally in sight. Step by step, they ventured deeper into the woods, the sunlight filtering through the canopy above. Despite the challenges they faced along the way, the prospect of reaching their destination filled them with renewed determination. Each stride brought them closer to their goal, and with each passing moment, their anticipation grew. For the apothecary and Resser, the journey held the promise of healing and the hope of a brighter future beyond the forest's edge. But their luck takes a turn for the worse when they stumble upon a king grizzly, a massive and ferocious creature that's particularly troublesome without its usual winter rest. The apothecary, skilled as he may be, knows he can't take any reckless actions with Resser's safety on the line. While he could possibly handle the grizzly alone, he refuses to endanger his companion. With his hand resting on his blade, he knows he must make a decision, face the beast head-on or risk being mauled. His choice becomes clear as he prepares to defend himself and Resser. Yet, just as he's about to strike, a voice startles him from behind. Fighting one adversary is one thing, but handling two simultaneously seems impossible. However, this voice doesn't belong to the King Grizzly. It's not a roar or a growl, but rather a distinct and resonant sound unlike anything they've encountered before. The apothecary is stunned when he turns around and discovers that the voice belongs to Resser. What could she possibly be attempting to do? His questions are swiftly answered when the bear, upon hearing her voice, suddenly calms down and retreats into the bushes, leaving the pair unharmed. The apothecary remains in a state of shock, unable to comprehend what he's just witnessed. This is the first time he's seen Resser exhibit traits of an elf, a creature known to communicate with the beings of the forest. Unable to contain his curiosity, he asks her directly if she possesses the ability to converse with animals. It's a question of utmost importance, but he doesn't press her for an immediate response, sensing her own confusion in the aftermath of the encounter. Resser admits she's unsure of what exactly she did, explaining that she merely wanted to calm the frightened bear down. With their nerves still on edge from the encounter, they press on through the forest, hoping to steer clear of any further dangerous creatures. However, the reality of their situation soon becomes apparent. In the heart of the forest, avoiding encounters with its myriad inhabitants is nearly impossible. Their fears are confirmed when they stumble upon a colossal snake slithering through the underbrush. It's a terrifying sight, and they realize that such mutated and formidable creatures seem to be cropping up with alarming frequency in the forest. The presence of these creatures hints at the possibility of dark forces at play, perhaps influenced by malevolent mana, the magical energy that permeates the world. The apothecary's mind races with theories about the enormous snake, contemplating its potential threat to nearby villages. Despite their initial reluctance to confront the creature, he realizes they can't simply ignore the danger it poses. Setting Resser down gently, he consumes a potion to bolster his strength, feeling the effects course through his veins. But strength alone won't suffice against such a formidable foe. Drawing his blade, he infuses it with the power of vibration magic, enhancing its potency for the battle ahead. With a determined resolve, he charges at the mutated serpent, wielding his newly fortified weapon. The clash is fierce, but with skill and strategy, he manages to bring the colossal snake down in a matter of minutes. Though not unscathed, the apothecary assesses his wounds and finds them manageable, relieved that they're not life-threatening. Determined to put the encounter behind them, they press onward, eager to leave this strange road and its dangers behind as quickly as possible. Concerned about the potential complications from the snake's venom, the apothecary administers himself an anti-venom injection, prioritizing preventive measures over treatment. As a seasoned healer, he understands the importance of taking precautions. Their journey finally leads them to the valley city of Kalga by the second evening since departing from the workshop. Despite facing various obstacles along the way, they've managed to make good time. However, their ultimate destination lies beyond Kalga, where the nearest portal awaits. Knowing that teleportation isn't suitable for everyone and fearing Resser's susceptibility to its effects, the apothecary decides they'll find lodging in the northern city, where they'll be teleported to. While portals offer a convenient mode of travel, they come at a steep price. Consequently, they're primarily utilized by nobility and government officials, as peasants often lack the means to access them easily. The apothecary knows a lot about the issues with getting the right permission to use the portal. They also know that the people who work there are often not very friendly and are mostly interested in making money, even if it means dealing with difficult customers and accepting bribes. It seems like the apothecary doesn't really trust these workers, but they're willing to use their desire for money to help themselves. When they get to the portal office, they meet one of the workers who seems to be very critical and is looking at Resser with a mean look on their face. After a few minutes of not saying anything, the worker says he won't help Resser because she belongs to a species with long ears. The apothecary couldn't believe what he was hearing and tried to reason with the operator, explaining that Resser was just a patient in need of treatment. But the operator remained stubborn, insisting that he could still tell she was an elf by looking at her skin color, eyes, and hair. However, he added that there was a way around it. They could obtain a special goods transport permit, albeit at a higher cost. Shocked and furious at the discrimination against other species that had become common around 80 years ago, the apothecary felt a surge of anger. But above all, he knew that Resser needed her treatment, and he refused to let anyone stand in the way just because of her race. He would never allow her to be treated like an object. His frustration became evident as he demanded that the operator find a way to bypass all the paperwork. The operator could sense the dangerous edge to the apothecary's anger, so he quickly relented and agreed to let them pass through the portal without any further delay. With a sense of relief, they left the portal office, both parties relieved to have reached a mutually acceptable agreement. The operator, in particular, felt a wave of gratitude for still being in one piece, as he had half expected the apothecary to lash out in anger. In the blink of an eye, they found themselves in North Bale, a town located further north. Eager to find a place to rest, they wasted no time in searching for lodging. After all the frustration they had endured, they felt they deserved a night of peace and quiet. Eventually, they secured a room with a single bed. It was a bit cramped, but it would suffice for their immediate need for rest. Despite their exhaustion, they managed to enjoy a nice meal at the lodge. However, they didn't stay awake for long. As soon as they lay down on the bed, the weariness from their long journey and the effects of the magical waves of the portal finally caught up with them. They drifted off into a deep sleep, finding solace in the peace of the night. When the apothecary woke up, the first thing he saw was Resser snuggled up to him. He looked closely at her and found her looking too innocent in her sleep. Despite any initial surprise, he couldn't resist her cuddles and decided to indulge in a little more sleep, relishing the peace and quiet before facing another day. As he woke up again, a sense of confusion lingered from a strange dream he had just experienced. In the dream, he saw Resser dressed as Santa Claus, and the whole scene felt surreal and perplexing. Though the details of the dream remained unclear, he knew one thing for sure: it wasn't a normal dream for him. After enjoying breakfast together at the lodge, they set out to do some shopping before continuing their journey. The apothecary couldn't shake off the odd feeling from his dream earlier that morning. As a result, he tried to maintain a respectable distance from Resser, perhaps chalking up the dreamy episode to her simply slipping into her own dreams after their morning cuddles. As they embarked on their journey from North Bale on a deer carriage, the apothecary and Resser still had a half-day's travel ahead of them before reaching his friend's place nestled in the mountains. With the open road stretching out before them, they found themselves with another opportunity to engage in conversation. Curious and pondering over the kindness she had received from the apothecary, Resser finally voiced her question. She wondered aloud why he was so nice to her, as nobody had ever treated her with such care and consideration before. Yet she harbored doubts about whether he would even disclose his reasons, considering he had even kept his name a secret from her. Despite his guarded nature, the apothecary decided to share a bit of his own backstory with Resser. He revealed that he, too, had experienced a life-saving act of kindness from someone similar to her. Abandoned as a baby, he faced the grim fate of starvation until a demon intervened, rescuing him and granting him a chance at life. Reflecting on this pivotal moment, he acknowledged that if not for the benevolent act of that mysterious figure, he wouldn't be alive, sitting beside her on that carriage. This profound experience shaped his worldview, instilling in him a belief that everyone deserves a chance to be saved, just as he had been. It was this sentiment that guided his actions towards Resser when he first encountered her in a vulnerable state. For the apothecary, extending kindness and offering assistance was not merely a choice, but a deeply ingrained belief born out of gratitude for his own salvation. As the deer carriage came to a halt at the foot of the summit, it became apparent that their journey was far from over. With the rest of the way up requiring travel by foot, the duo strapped on their snowshoes and set out on foot. However, as they began their ascent, the apothecary's condition took a turn for the worse. A feverish sensation washed over him, accompanied by overwhelming fatigue. The strain of their long journey was finally catching up to him, and he struggled to press on. Uncertainty clouded his mind as he tried to pinpoint the cause of his illness. He wondered if it was the lingering effects of the snake venom, or perhaps the biting cold of the mountain air. Regardless of the cause, the worsening weather only served to exacerbate his condition, as snow began to fall steadily around them. Realizing that continuing on in such conditions would only worsen his health, they sought refuge in the shelter of a rocky outcrop, where they could wait out the approaching blizzard. Huddled together for warmth, They could only hope for the storm to pass quickly so they could resume their journey to safety. As they huddled together in the little cave, the apothecary couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt for leading them to such a predicament. He apologized to Resser for their current situation, but to his dismay, she blamed herself, thinking even the change in weather was somehow her fault. As they waited, the apothecary's fever showed no signs of slowing down, and the blizzard outside only intensified. It became increasingly apparent that they might have to spend the entire night in their rocky refuge. Though he wasn't thrilled about sleeping on the cold ground, exhaustion overtook him, and he drifted off into a restless sleep, perhaps dreaming of warmth and comfort. The next morning brought a temporary respite from the storm, but the apothecary's condition had only worsened. He struggled to make progress, his fever leaving him weak and disoriented. To make matters worse, his vision started to blur, signaling a dangerous decline in his health. Realizing the urgency of their situation, the apothecary knew he had to call for help. Despite his weakened state, he mustered up the strength to send a rescue signal to his friend. But as he did, he felt himself slipping further into unconsciousness, his strength rapidly dwindling. It seemed as though their survival depended on the arrival of help, and time was running out. As Resser watched the apothecary's condition worsen, her worry grew into a determination to help him by any means necessary. Remembering the pendant he had given her, she activated it, hoping its signaling magic would bring them the assistance they so desperately needed. With no other options left, they could only wait and hope for a miracle. Meanwhile, several leagues away, atop a cliff, a masked figure spotted the signal emanating from Resser's pendant. Recognizing the distress call, they wasted no time in springing into action, knowing that someone was in dire need of their help. Back in the comfort of a warm bed, the apothecary stirred from his unconscious state, momentarily confused by his surroundings. As he took in his surroundings, he realized that his hardships had not been a dream at all. To his surprise and relief, he found himself in the presence of his old friend, Adam, the demon who had once saved his life. Grateful for his friend's timely intervention, the apothecary felt a wave of relief wash over him. Despite the challenges they had faced, they were now in the safe hands of a trusted ally. As the apothecary was filled in on the events of the previous day, including their rescue by Adam's servant Ghosh, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and embarrassment. Adam scolded him for sending a weak signal that failed to properly indicate their location. It was clear that without Ghosh's intervention, their fate could have been far bleaker, possibly succumbing to the harsh elements or falling prey to snow leopards. Although reassured that Resser was safe, the apothecary found himself on the receiving end of Adam's lecture. He was admonished for overexerting himself in monster battles while neglecting his mana training. It was a stark reminder of his responsibilities and the need to prioritize his well-being. Despite the relief of their rescue, the apothecary couldn't shake off the feeling of being scolded like a child. He hoped that his time with Adam wouldn't be filled with constant reprimands, fearing that Resser might perceive him as nothing more than someone who's always being scolded. Despite Adamska's unconventional methods and questionable ethical practices in his pursuit of medical knowledge, the apothecary harbored a genuine fondness for the ex-human turned demon. Adamska's relentless quest for understanding the intricacies of the body often led him to stalk fresh parts and conduct ethically dubious medical magic experiments. However, beneath his eccentricities, the apothecary recognized that Adamska was not inherently malevolent. Having known Adamska for a considerable period, the apothecary could attest to the fact that his friend's eccentricities stemmed from a deep-seated curiosity rather than any malicious intent. Unlike himself, Adamska possessed the necessary expertise to handle Resser's arms and legs, which were the primary reason for embarking on their arduous and perilous journey. Despite their differences in approach and perspective, the apothecary valued Adamska's friendship and trusted his abilities. He knew that with Adamska's assistance, they stood a better chance of achieving their objective and helping Resser reclaim her lost limbs. Adam expressed relief upon seeing the apothecary safe and sound, but he wasted no time in getting down to business, inquiring about the money. Understanding the practicalities of their situation, the apothecary presented the shiny coins he had brought along, satisfying Adam's concerns about their financial stability for the time being. With the monetary matters settled, Adam's curiosity and excitement as a medic were reignited, especially at the prospect of working with elf bones after a prolonged absence. Eager to begin the treatment, Adam Ska initiated his examination of Resser, utilizing his innate magical ability known as Alma. This mystical power, intricately linked with his soul, had been honed through rigorous training, allowing Adam to perform detailed and precise inspections of Resser's condition. As Resser passed out during her examination, a wave of concern washed over everyone present. However, they breathed a collective sigh of relief when she regained consciousness just in time for dinner. Gathered around the dinner table, Adam shared his insights with the apothecary regarding Resser's condition. He explained that while the damage to her skin and internal organs would likely heal naturally over time, her limbs and eyes posed significant challenges. Regarding her eyes, Adam revealed a troubling discovery. Someone had deliberately obstructed Resser's sight with mana in her right eye, indicating malicious intent. Additionally, her left eye was beyond repair, rendering it irreparable even with a replacement. Turning his attention to her limbs, Adam uncovered a corrosion spell that had infected them severely, complicating matters further. It was evident that someone harbored ill intentions toward Resser, intentionally impeding her recovery at every turn. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on them as they grappled with the realization that Resser's journey to regain her health would be fraught with challenges and obstacles, with an unknown adversary working against her every step of the way. As they assessed Resser's condition, one glimmer of hope emerged. Her elf metabolism was slowing down the deterioration of her limbs. However, despite this small positive, the overall outlook remained grim. Her injuries were severe, and the task of healing her limbs seemed insurmountable. The apothecary couldn't help but grapple with feelings of guilt and self-doubt. He questioned whether his hesitation to amputate Resser's limbs had jeopardized her life, and the weight of this possibility hung heavy on his conscience. He knew that he had to do everything in his power to save her, even if it meant making difficult and painful decisions. Adam, adopting a serious tone, laid out everything before them. Leaving Resser's limbs untreated could prove fatal, and the only viable option left was amputation. Despite the gravity of the situation, they had meticulously planned the surgery, leaving only one daunting task remaining: informing Resser of the impending amputation. With heavy hearts and a sense of grim determination, they prepared to deliver the news to Resser, knowing that it would be a difficult and emotional conversation. However, they were resolved to do whatever it took to ensure her survival, even if it meant making the sacrifice to save her life. As Adam instructed the apothecary to waste no time in delivering the news to Resser, he also expressed his need to speak with her privately about something important. Understanding the urgency of the situation, the apothecary hurried towards Resser's room, his heart heavy with the weight of the impending conversation. Meanwhile, Adam set off to search through his collection of spare limbs, hoping to find ones that matched Resser's size and specifications. Despite Adam's demonic nature, the apothecary couldn't help but wonder if it was normal for him to have such a collection. Nevertheless, he trusted that Adam's intentions were genuine and that he would find a suitable replacement for Resser. As the apothecary entered Resser's room, he couldn't help but notice the peaceful expression on her face as she lay in bed. Despite the gravity of the situation, she greeted him with a smile, expressing relief at seeing him okay. With a heavy heart, the apothecary relayed Adam's message, explaining the necessity of the surgery and the lack of alternative solutions. Resser listened in silence, her expression betraying a mixture of fear and determination. After a moment of reflection, she gathered her courage and expressed her readiness to undergo the surgery, placing her trust in him. Despite her attempt to appear strong, the apothecary noticed the subtle trembling of her shoulders, a sign of the immense emotional strain she was under. He admired her resilience and strength, recognizing that beneath her delicate exterior, Resser possessed a fierce spirit that had carried her through countless challenges. He couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude towards Resser for her bravery and resilience. Despite the daunting task ahead, he found solace in the knowledge that they would face it together. The apothecary is also overwhelmed with the trust she has built in him and decides that he will do everything in his power not to betray this. The big moment is coming closer, and Adam, who's helping out, finally finds the perfect arm and leg for Resser. He's been searching through his stuff and finally gets what he needs. Then comes the part where they make Resser go to sleep for the surgery. They use something called anesthesia, which makes her sleep really deeply. They also tie her arms and legs to keep them still. Before they start cutting, they make sure everything is super clean. They clean all their tools really well to keep Resser safe. Resser lies down, all ready for the surgery. She gets the anesthesia, and then the two men begin. One of them uses a special knife that vibrates to cut off her old limbs. It might sound scary, but they're really careful and make sure it doesn't hurt her. The other guy is busy connecting her new limbs, making sure they fit just right. Resser wakes up a little bit during the surgery. She looks around, feeling kind of dazed and confused. The apothecary feels really relieved that the anesthesia is working. He knows how awful it would be to feel all that pain from getting your limbs cut off. Luckily, Adam knows what he's doing. He's done this kind of thing before, so the apothecary starts feeling hopeful that Resser will be okay. As the surgery goes on, the apothecary watches Adam work. He's amazed at how well Adam handles everything. Adam seems to know exactly where to put the nerves and bones, almost like magic. Plus, the limbs he picked out for Resser look good on her. They don't make her look scary or anything. But then, the apothecary notices something strange. Adam keeps talking to himself and giggling while he works on Resser's limbs. It's kind of weird, but the apothecary decides not to say anything. He figures Adam must have his reasons. They leave Resser to rest for a while, giving her time to wake up slowly. When she finally opens her eyes, she's really happy that the surgery is over. But things feel a bit strange to her, like everything is lighter than usual. She can't feel her new limbs yet, and she knows she might have to deal with some pain for a while. But she's just so relieved that all the bad stuff is gone now. Resser learns that she has to do some special exercises to help her nerves and mana channels get back to normal. It sounds like a lot of work, but she's willing to do whatever it takes to feel better. Adam says his job is done now. He can't stick around to take care of Resser all the time. The apothecary realizes that Resser is his responsibility now, but he's okay with that. He's grateful to Adam for doing such a great job with the surgery, even if it cost a lot of money. Money isn't the most important thing to the apothecary anyway. After the surgery, they decide to stay at Adam's place for a while. The apothecary needs to rest up and recover from all the hard work he's been doing. Plus, they want to keep a close eye on Resser's condition, which can be pretty unpredictable. While they're staying at Adam's mansion, he keeps the apothecary busy with chores. He's basically making him clean the whole place, even the cold storage area. But the apothecary doesn't mind at all. He feels like he owes Adam a lot for helping with Resser's surgery, so he's happy to do whatever he can to help out. During one of their regular checkups on Resser, the apothecary asks her about her dentures. They seem to be bothering her a bit, but she says she's okay. The apothecary gets really excited when he sees her fingers moving. It's a sign that her nerves are starting to wake up, even though she still can't feel anything with them. Resser isn't as excited as he is though. She's still unable to feel any sensations in her fingers, and it's frustrating for her. But the apothecary sees it as a hopeful sign. He believes that if they keep doing their exercises, she'll eventually be able to move her new arm like it's supposed to. As the days go by, Resser's nerves start to reconnect, which is a really good sign. It's decided that it's time for them to head back to the apothecary's workshop. But before they leave, Adam wants to make sure everything is okay with Resser's new limbs. He checks her over one last time to be sure there won't be any problems. Then, Adam takes Resser to the terrace for a private chat. The apothecary wonders what they could be talking about. Out there, Adam starts by telling her something serious. He explains that parts of her body have been badly damaged, especially the female parts. It's not something easy to hear, but he wants her to know the truth. He tells her that there are risky procedures she could try to fix it, but it's up to her to decide. Their conversation on the terrace lasts for a few minutes. They're both really focused, not moving from their spots at all. When they come back, the apothecary can tell from their expressions that it wasn't a light-hearted talk. It seems like they were discussing something really important and maybe difficult to handle. As the apothecary and Resser get ready to head home, Resser looks upset for some reason. Maybe she's feeling anxious about the road trip ahead. Just as they're getting everything together, Adam interrupts them. He has something he wants to give to the apothecary. Adam leads them down to the basement of the mansion, where they end up in a storage room. The apothecary's eyes light up when he sees something special. It turns out to be an air gal, a custom-made piece of dwarven technology that his savior used to ride. This technology was supposed to be lost, but somehow Adam managed to find it. Adam explains that he doesn't have any use for it, so he's offering it to the apothecary. They can use it to travel back home. It's a generous gift and the apothecary is really excited about it. This air gal could make their journey a lot easier and faster. It's a thoughtful gesture from Adam, and the apothecary feels grateful for his kindness. As they're about to leave, Resser says goodbye to Adam and promises to help him with chores the next time they visit. But Adam doesn't seem too keen on inviting them back. He explains that he's done with his research using the elf's body, so there's not much reason for them to return. They start up the air gal, a magical device powered by mana stones that lifts them into the air, and they say goodbye to Adam's mansion as they fly away. The apothecary is grateful for the air gal, but he knows it's not without its drawbacks. It needs a lot of energy and regular maintenance, which might be too much to handle. When they get back home to the workshop, they settle in for about a week. The apothecary feels relieved to be back home. He's even stashed the air gal on the porch, a clear sign that he's decided not to use it again. Despite its usefulness, nothing beats the comfort and familiarity of home for the apothecary. Resser is doing well after the surgery, and thankfully, there haven't been any complications. Her wounds are healing nicely, and soon she'll have her smooth skin back. Now that Resser is awake and conscious, the apothecary finds himself feeling a bit awkward about giving her a bath. Luckily, Annette and Monet arrive to help out. They invite Resser to join them when they go to the bath, which solves the problem for the apothecary. Resser happily accepts the invitation, looking forward to enjoying the warm bath. As Resser relaxes in the soothing water, the apothecary hopes that it will help her feel more comfortable and at ease. He's grateful to Annette and Monet for their help and relieved that Resser is able to enjoy a moment of relaxation during her recovery. Annette and Monet decide to stay for dinner with the duo after helping Resser with her bath. It's a cozy evening, and everyone enjoys each other's company. Resser's scars look better, and it's clear that the bath was a good idea. The apothecary applies some healing salve to her wounds, hoping it will help them heal even further. He's determined to help Resser move past her old appearance, wanting her to feel confident and comfortable in her own skin again. Another task on the apothecary's agenda is cutting Resser's hair. He may not be a professional hairstylist, but he knows it's important for her to reclaim her identity. Resser had grown out her bangs to hide her face, but now there's no need for that anymore. Additionally, he's made her an eye patch to protect her sunken left eye. As he carefully trims her bangs and adjusts the eye patch, Resser starts to look like a normal girl again, even with the pirate-like eye patch. The apothecary hopes that these changes will help her blend in more and avoid attracting unwanted attention from the villagers. It's a small step towards her feeling more like herself again, and he's glad to be able to help her on this journey to recovery. With Resser on the road to recovery, the apothecary can finally return to his usual routine. He's eager to get back to work, not just because he enjoys it, but also because he needs to attend to other patients who can pay for his services. His long vacation is over, and he's ready to dive back into his work at the workshop. During the day, the apothecary busies himself with his patients, providing medicines to those in need and attending to various ailments. Meanwhile, Resser spends her time outside, connecting with nature and absorbing mana from the atmosphere to replenish her magical reserves. As a magical elf, mana flows throughout her body, and this natural environment helps her recharge. After work, the apothecary assists Resser with her limb exercises. He's determined to accelerate her recovery, so he uses a combination of electric and vibration magic to stimulate her muscles. It's a painful process for Resser, but it's necessary for her progress. Despite the pain, there's a newfound determination in Resser's eyes. It's a determination the apothecary has never seen before. It seems she's no longer resigned to a meaningless fate. Instead, she's embracing the chance for a better life, and the apothecary is committed to helping her achieve it. Together, they'll overcome the challenges ahead. As the days pass, the apothecary and Resser continue their recovery exercises, facing both good days and tough ones. Some days, they make progress and feel like they're moving forward. Other days, it feels like they're stuck in place, with no improvement in sight. But through it all, they refuse to give up hope. During this time, Resser has been working hard on her speech. Her words have become much clearer, and they're able to have real conversations now, even though her memories are still fuzzy. In one of their sessions, the apothecary decides to focus on Resser's wrist and elbow movements, hoping to restore her ability to move freely and flex her joints. As Resser tries to bend her wrist, something unexpected happens. Her hand starts to glow with magical energy. The apothecary is taken aback by this development. Resser is actually using magic with her hands now, and it feels surreal for him to witness it. It's a promising sign of her progress and a reminder of the magical potential within her. With this newfound ability, they're one step closer to her full recovery, and the apothecary is filled with renewed hope for the future. Resser explains to the apothecary that her glowing hand was actually an attempt to surprise him, but she couldn't control her magic when he held her hand for the first time. It seems that the physical contact triggered something magical within her, causing her magic to reveal itself without her intending it to. She seems quite happy about this mistake, indicating that there was something more than just magic at play during their touch. In fact, Resser shares that she gained control of her hand earlier that morning. The first thing she did was practice channeling magic through her newly recovered hand. After being unable to use her hands for so long, being able to wield magic once again must be a remarkable feeling for her. It's clear that Resser has missed the sensation of magic at her fingertips, and now that she can use it freely, she's filled with excitement and joy. The apothecary is amazed by Resser's rapid progress in her recovery and feels a swell of pride for her dedication to her exercises. Her determination has driven her to achieve so much in such a short time, and he couldn't be happier for her. Amidst their excitement, a delivery arrives from the local craftsman. The apothecary eagerly opens it and is delighted to find that his order is just as he imagined. With a smile, he asks Resser to try it out, revealing that the mysterious object is a wheelchair. He explains that he ordered the wheelchair to better prepare them for any future travel plans. Carrying Resser on his back for entire journeys is impractical and exhausting, so the wheelchair will make their travels much smoother and more efficient. The apothecary can hardly believe how perfectly the wheelchair has turned out, especially since he provided the sketch for it. It's an imitation of something he had seen in the capital, and having it made by a specialist ensures its durability. He's confident that it won't break anytime soon, and he's excited for Resser to enjoy the freedom and fun of moving around in it. Resser is naturally curious about the wheelchair with wheels, though she understandably harbors some apprehension until she's fully convinced it won't pose any danger to her. But as she grows accustomed to it, she'll likely come to appreciate the newfound mobility and freedom it offers, once assured of its safety. Meanwhile, the apothecary notices that the dentures he crafted for Resser are starting to become loose. Knowing the importance of her dental health, especially for her eventual return home and the recovery of her lost memories, he decides to make new ones for her. Removing the old dentures turns out to be a messy process, but the apothecary manages it skillfully. Then, with careful hands, he fixes the new dentures in her mouth, hoping they'll provide a secure and comfortable fit. Considering her dental needs, the apothecary decides to prepare a dinner that's easy to chew, mindful of Resser's comfort. As the dinner is served, Resser eagerly begins to eat with her own hands, demonstrating the progress she's made in regaining control of her movements. The apothecary watches her with a mixture of pride and nostalgia, realizing that she now has the ability to feed herself after months of him assisting her. It's a bittersweet moment for him. Resser particularly enjoys the fish paste that the apothecary has prepared, savoring each bite with delight. The apothecary is pleased to see her enjoying the meal, knowing that his culinary skills have brought her joy. Despite the challenges she still faces, Resser's happiness at being able to feed herself is evident, and it brings a sense of fulfillment to the apothecary. Even though Resser doesn't have full control of her hand yet, she's able to move her arm enough to feed herself with some assistance. This independence marks a significant milestone in her recovery journey, and the apothecary can't help but feel a sense of pride at her progress. At the same time, he also feels a bit of sadness at the thought that he's no longer needed to feed her. It's a reminder of how far she's come and how much she's overcome, but also of the bond they've shared during her rehabilitation. The apothecary decides to make use of his 2 extra days off from the workshop each month to help Resser. Recognizing her ability to use magic, he sees an opportunity for her to replenish her internal magic reserves. It's also a chance for him to take a much-needed break. With this in mind, they plan a restful getaway to a place filled with mana, not too far from the workshop. Their chosen destination is a secluded spot where they can find peace and tranquility without any disturbances. Resser sits comfortably in her new wheelchair while the apothecary pushes it from behind. Though it's a bit wobbly, the wheelchair makes their journey much easier. It also provides relief to the apothecary's back, which no longer has to bear the burden of carrying extra weight for miles. As they travel, the apothecary can't help but feel grateful for this opportunity to spend quality time with Resser and help her recharge her magical energy. It's a chance for them both to unwind and enjoy the serenity of nature, far away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. As they settle down for lunch in the perfect spot they've found, Resser's heart swells with gratitude and love for the people and the place that has shown her so much care and kindness. In this tranquil moment, she finds herself wishing she could stay here forever. The apothecary, on the other hand, reflects on how much has changed since Resser first arrived under his care. He never would have imagined a scene like this just a few months ago. He knows that Resser is making remarkable progress in her recovery, and he's proud of how far she's come. But amidst the beauty of their surroundings, the apothecary is struck by a realization. He knows that Resser will eventually regain her memories and be able to return home. When that day comes, his role in her life will come to an end. It's a bittersweet thought, and he realizes he needs to be honest with Resser about his intentions before she grows too attached to him and this place. As they enjoy their lunch together, the apothecary resolves to have a heartfelt conversation with Resser. He wants to ensure that she understands his feelings and plans for the future, even if it means facing the possibility of breaking her heart when the time comes for her to leave. As they sit in the calm of the forest, the apothecary's voice breaks the silence with a deep emotion. It's a moment that Resser has never experienced before, and she listens intently as he begins to reveal a part of his past. However, his opening statement is a bit confusing for Resser, leaving her puzzled about what he's trying to convey. As he continues to speak, the apothecary's words become more transparent. He confesses that he didn't help her out of the goodness of his heart, but rather for his own selfish reasons. Resser is taken aback by his honesty, her confusion deepening as he shares more about his past. The apothecary admits to actions that shock her: demons, elves, and dwarves with his own hands. He reveals that becoming an apothecary and helping her was his way of trying to atone for his sins. A wave of disbelief washes over Resser as she processes the weight of his words. She's never heard him speak like this before, and she struggles to reconcile the kind-hearted person she knows with the confession of a past filled with violence and regret. As the apothecary's words hang heavy in the air, Resser wonders why he's chosen this moment to reveal such painful truths and if he is seeking forgiveness, or does he expect her to condemn him for his past actions? She's left grappling with her own emotions, unsure of how to respond to this unexpected revelation. Resser is struck by a whirlwind of emotions as she listens to the apothecary's confession and his suggestion that she keep her stay with him short. She's unsure how to respond to his unexpected revelation, but one thing is clear to her: despite his troubled past, this person has shown her an immense amount of care and kindness. In the midst of her confusion, Resser finds herself reflecting on all the ways the apothecary has gone above and beyond to care for her. From the moment they met, he has dedicated himself to her well-being, even when they were strangers to each other. He could have simply provided her with medicine and left her to recover on her own, but instead, he has done everything in his power to save her life and support her on her journey to recovery. As she considers his words, Resser realizes that the apothecary's actions speak louder than his past. Despite his inner turmoil and self-doubt, he has shown her compassion and selflessness. Resser's heart swells with gratitude as she considers the lengths the apothecary has gone to for her sake. Despite not knowing her past or his own, she's keenly aware of his unwavering care and compassion. Her body and soul resonate with his kindness, and she trusts her intuition that he is someone worth trusting. In response to his suggestion that she keep her stay short, Resser finds herself unable to ignore the overwhelming truth: he saved her life. His actions speak volumes, showing her the depth of his compassion and the sincerity of his intentions. She refuses to be swayed by fear or judgment based on his past, knowing that she has only experienced his kind and caring nature. Resser believes in the power of redemption and forgiveness. She understands that a person's past mistakes do not define them forever, especially when they demonstrate genuine remorse and a desire to change. She chooses to focus on the person the apothecary has shown himself to be in the present, rather than dwelling on his past sins. The apothecary listens to Resser's response with a heavy heart, feeling the weight of his own sins bearing down on him. He's tormented by the thought that he revealed his past in search of validation, seeking some form of redemption that he fears he may never truly attain. Despite his doubts, he's grateful for Resser's trust in him, knowing that she wouldn't reject him even if she knew the darkest depths of his past. Turning his thoughts to the task at hand, the apothecary asks Resser if she has any memories of her hometown. He's hoping for even the smallest hint, a scent, an image, a landscape, that might lead him to her origins. He knows that cracking this code could be their best chance at finding her way home. However, Resser's mind is elsewhere. She's always relied on the apothecary's guidance and support, never truly searching for her past. But now, as she gazes into his eyes for the first time, she feels a stirring of recognition deep within her. Despite her imperfect vision, she senses something familiar about him, something dark and heavy lurking behind him. In a sudden burst of clarity, Resser blurts out the one memory she has of her hometown: red eyes and black hair. It's a small fragment of her past, but it's a starting point, a glimmer of hope in their quest to uncover the truth of her origins. The apothecary started to wonder if this was someone Resser knew, maybe a relative or a friend. But as he listened to her words, he was completely shocked. She told him she could see again, and she was really interested in how his face looked. He wasn't sure if it was because the eye drops had finally worked, or if her determination to see beyond the darkness had somehow made her vision come back. But either way, she could see again. At first, the apothecary felt really happy about this miraculous recovery. But his happiness didn't last long. He couldn't shake the feeling that helping just one person wasn't enough to make up for all the bad things he'd done. He felt like he needed to do a lot more to wash away the guilt he felt for hurting so many innocent people. But seeing Resser's incredible recovery and her determination to keep moving forward made him realize something important. It made him feel like he was the one being saved. In that moment, he felt the relationship between them changing, even if it was just a little bit. After getting their mana recharge, the apothecary and Resser returned to the workshop. The apothecary thought it was about time to show Resser around since she hadn't actually seen the place before, despite living there for a few months. He pointed out the shelves where he kept his medicines, and Resser finally got to see the views she used to imagine when her vision was still dark. Once the tour was over and the initial excitement had settled, the sun started to set. It was time for Resser to do her exercises and prepare for sleep, which included changing her clothes. The apothecary helped her with this task, as he had done many times before. However, this time, Resser started shaking when he began to assist her. She was sweating a lot, feeling embarrassed, even though the apothecary didn't realize it. He thought she was shaking because of some mental problem, not because she was embarrassed or blushing. He concluded that if they wanted her to be able to move on her own, they'd have to get her a left arm and a right leg, but that required a lot of funds. The apothecary needs to find a way to make money, while Resser needs to keep up with her leg exercises. They've been continuing their leg exercises together, along with the arm exercises she's been learning to move her new legs. But it's clear that she's not going to be dancing around the house anytime soon, as her complete recovery is still a long way off. Deciding to push Resser a little further, the apothecary introduces some advanced motions during their exercise session. He helps her try standing up and sitting down to stimulate her thigh muscles while providing support. However, the session starts off with an unexpected twist when the apothecary loses his balance while supporting Resser. They both end up tumbling to the ground, with Resser landing on top of him. Feeling completely embarrassed, Resser finds herself uncomfortably close to the apothecary's face, a situation they'd never been in before. For a few seconds, they both stay frozen in place, exchanging apologies and blushing cheeks as they realize the awkwardness of the situation. Rumors and news travel fast, especially in the apothecary's village. Everyone has heard about Resser regaining her eyesight, and this wonderful news is celebrated by all. Among the first visitors to offer their congratulations are Annette and Monet. Annette, the little girl, is bursting with excitement to meet Resser, so much so that her mother has a tough time convincing her to make a detour to pick up something for the elf. Resser is sitting outside on the patio when the apothecary leads Annette and Monet to her. The elf instantly recognizes her old friends and is delighted to see that they brought a bouquet for her. Monet shares that they gathered the flowers themselves, especially for Resser, now that she can see again. Resser knows that the flowers themselves are ordinary, but the sentiment behind them is incredibly deep and touching. The apothecary is keenly aware that Resser's recovery has been possible because of the efforts of Annette and Monet, who have been there for her throughout. Resser is overjoyed with all the attention and love she's receiving, and her smile shines brighter than ever. As the evening progresses, the duo joins Annette and Monet in preparing dinner together. During their time together, the little girl compliments Resser's eyes, noting their brightness compared to the apothecary's own dark eyes. This prompts Resser to glance at her savior, who seems unusually happy. Throughout the evening, they enjoy pleasant conversation and a sense of warmth and togetherness. After dinner, Resser pulls Annette aside for a chat before she leaves. Curiously, she asks Annette if she and the apothecary are together romantically. The image of the apothecary looking so happy next to Annette moments earlier sparked the question in Resser's mind. However, Annette laughs it off, finding Resser's innocence endearing. Despite the laughter, she takes the opportunity to scold the apothecary gently for not mentioning that she has a husband, even though he's currently not at home. The apothecary has a wandering merchant who occasionally stops by his workshop to supply him with rare ingredients, including the most elusive herbs from all corners of the land. However, beyond the valuable herbs, the merchant also brings news from far and wide, as traveling proves to be an excellent way to stay well informed. During his latest visit, the merchant has a different request for the apothecary. He starts by sharing troubling news about the state of mana flow lately. Many of his fellow travelers and colleagues have been encountering dangerous monsters and beasts, posing a serious threat to their safety. Clearly, this has become a significant concern, as no one wants to risk being attacked or worse, becoming a monster's meal. The apothecary can relate to this danger firsthand, recalling the harrowing experience of being attacked by a grizzly bear while traveling in the mountains with Resser. The merchant's news serves as a reminder of the ongoing dangers lurking in the world, prompting the apothecary to consider what actions might need to be taken to ensure everyone's safety in these times. The merchant cuts straight to the point with his request, wondering if the apothecary has any sort of beast repellent. The apothecary, instead of offering a simple spray, devises a more effective solution. He concocts a mixture of tobacco and herbs that emit an unpleasant odor to beasts, deterring them from approaching. However, this request triggers a memory in the apothecary's mind. He recalls the remarkable moment when Resser used her voice to calm a bear they encountered on their journey to Adam. He's left wondering how she managed to stop such a massive creature with just her voice. The memory of that encounter with the old king grizzly remains vivid in his mind, and he finds himself unable to resist his curiosity any longer. He wants to ask Resser how she did it, but it seems that this ability came to her instinctively rather than something she consciously possessed. When he finally gathers the courage to ask her, Resser responds in a way that surprises him. She explains that the bear was actually afraid of the apothecary himself. She describes his voice as cold, resembling a sharp blade, and suggests that the bear sensed his aura of determination and perhaps even a hint of bloodlust. Resser explains that she simply wanted to reassure the bear, letting it know that it was safe and no harm would come to it. The apothecary agrees, acknowledging that if an animal is afraid, there should be a way to communicate that no harm is intended. Perhaps, he muses, he could create a magical tool for this purpose, reducing the risk of encountering aggressive bears in the future. His mind springs into action immediately. He recalls ancient ruins that contain traps replicating the scream of a mandragora. He wondered if he could create something similar that mimicked Resser's voice on demand. With this tool, he could pacify beasts whenever necessary. However, he realizes that he'll need to incorporate vibration magic, as this idea revolves around sound. Though he's never used vibration magic for this purpose before, he's determined to give it a try. After all, there's always a first time for everything. Excitedly, the apothecary shares his plan with Resser and asks for her help. She eagerly agrees, unable to contain her excitement at the prospect of assisting him. When he presents her with a stone, she's a bit puzzled, wondering if she's supposed to sing into it. However, he clarifies that he just wants her to sing normally, while he takes care of the recording part. Together, they conduct their experiment, with Resser singing and the apothecary recording her voice onto the stone. Once they're finished, the apothecary sets the stone aside, now containing the recording of Resser's song. They eagerly await the next visit from the wandering merchant, who will be the first to try out their experiment. In the meantime, they put aside their focus on the stone and continue with Resser's exercises, particularly for her left leg, with the hope that she'll be able to travel someday. Resser feels genuinely sorry for taking up so much of the apothecary's time every evening with her exercises. She can't shake the feeling that she's burdening him. However, the apothecary reassures her, explaining that these exercises are nothing compared to what he's had to do in the past. He doesn't mind at all. As he begins massaging her left leg, which has been steadily improving but still isn't at the level of her right arm, he expresses his belief that she'll soon be able to move it freely. He looks forward to the day when she won't depend on him as much, though he insists that he doesn't mind helping her at all. Resser's sense of guilt begins to fade as she realizes the depth of the apothecary's care and support. The apothecary's train of thought about Resser's potential need for a crutch is abruptly interrupted by Resser herself. Observing her determination to say something after their exercises, he invites her to sit down and talk. Sensing her uncertainty, he initiates the conversation with a few trivial questions to ease into the discussion. There's a momentary pause in the conversation before Resser gathers the courage to express her thoughts. Meeting his gaze directly, she begins by acknowledging his unwavering care for her. However, she expresses her desire to reciprocate by being useful to him in other ways, beyond just singing into a stone. She proposes helping him out in his workshop. This proposition leaves the apothecary feeling conflicted and confused. He has always viewed Resser as a patient, and the idea of her assisting him in his work feels foreign. However, he's also aware of her remarkable recovery and regained control over her movements. Perhaps, he realizes, it's time to reassess their dynamic and recognize Resser as more than just a patient in need of care. After Resser expresses her desire to help in the workshop, the apothecary is faced with a decision. Despite her progress and recovery, he wonders if she's offering out of a sense of obligation rather than genuine readiness. He doesn't want her to feel indebted to him for her treatment. Thus, he gently explains to her that while he appreciates her offer, it would be easier for him to agree if her body had fully recovered. He acknowledges her current limitations, knowing she can't yet use her magic or limbs effectively. He expresses his reluctance to give her work when she's still in a state of partial sickness. Although he feels sorry for turning her down, he believes it's the right decision for her well-being. He assures her that he'll work towards the day when she's fully capable, promising to involve her in his work when that time comes. Resser, determined to improve both her health and her skills, undergoes a significant shift in attitude. She begins doing as much as she can without his assistance, displaying an unstoppable determination. Despite his reservations, the apothecary continues to offer help with potentially risky activities. However, Resser stops asking for assistance altogether, her face set with determination as she actively seeks tasks she can accomplish independently. For example, she practices manipulating mana, imagining it flowing from her fingertips into objects like flowers, as she works to regain her magic permanently. Her relentless dedication to improvement leaves the apothecary both impressed and proud. 4 months have swiftly passed, and the apothecary finds himself in his workshop, engrossed in preparing the next batch of recording stones for delivery to the wandering merchant. Suddenly, he hears Resser's voice from the kitchen. She's prepared breakfast, but her expression reveals her displeasure upon discovering that the apothecary hasn't slept the entire night again. In the past 3 months, Resser has made remarkable progress. She's now adept at using her limbs and moves around with the aid of a crutch. With her newfound mobility, she's eager to contribute to the workshop, just as the apothecary promised. Despite her initial frustrations with his sleeplessness, she's determined to support him as much as she can. Later that night, the apothecary takes a moment to express his gratitude to Resser for her assistance. Coming from him, this acknowledgement of her hard work means a lot, and it brings a genuine smile to Resser's face. With this heartfelt compliment, Resser finally feels a sense of peace settling over her, allowing her to drift off into a restful sleep. The apothecary reflects on how helping a single elf girl couldn't erase his past mistakes, but it was something he felt compelled to do. Now, As he observes Resser's remarkable recovery and her invaluable assistance in his work, the memory of the ragged elf he once was feels like a distant echo. Resser's mobility has improved significantly, but the apothecary worries about her safety and believes she could benefit from artificial limbs. Fortunately, the popularity of the recording stones featuring her singing has provided them with the financial means to afford such prosthetics. Their sales have generated enough money to make this dream a reality. As they prepare to travel once more, the apothecary feels reassured knowing they won't encounter the King Grizzly again, thanks to the air ghoul they now possess. After 4.5 days of travel, the apothecary and Resser finally reach the dwarven city of Valston, renowned for its exceptional metalworking. Despite the apothecary's concerns about his old friend's lack of response to his letter, he decides to seek out the blacksmith, Madrilli, at the forge. Upon finding Madrilli at the forge, the apothecary faces a daunting challenge, convincing her to craft the artificial limbs for Resser. Despite Madrilli's strong dislike for elves, the apothecary knows she's the only one skilled enough for the task. He spends the next few days trying to sway her opinion. However, Madrilli's attitude begins to change when she sees Resser walking around and engaging with everyone in the city, displaying a childlike wonder and curiosity about dwarven technology. Slowly, she begins to warm up to the elf. Realizing that the artificial limbs will require strong power sources, the trio decides to repurpose the engine of the air ghoul to assist them in this endeavor. As they prepare to depart from Valston, the apothecary marvels at Madrilli's impeccable craftsmanship, finding the artificial limbs to be beyond satisfactory for Resser's daily needs. Despite their depleted funds, he harbors no complaints, content in witnessing Resser's newfound ability to walk beside him with ease. Leaving the air ghoul in Madrilli's capable hands, they opt for a portal to return home. The apothecary finds solace in their penniless state, knowing that the expense was worth it to see Resser finally mobile. During their journey back, the apothecary overhears whispers about the recording stones they've been selling. However, the conversation takes an unexpected turn as the individual speaks of rumors surrounding the stones' origins. According to this person, the stones are believed to come from a priestess in the east who possesses the power to subdue animals and magical beasts. The apothecary's mind is consumed with concern over the rumors he heard, even after returning home to the workshop. He worries about the potential consequences these rumors could have for himself and Resser. Deciding it may be best to delay giving the next batch of stones to the merchant, he contemplates his next move. However, his thoughts are abruptly interrupted by the arrival of an elf at the workshop. It's clear that this visit is not friendly. The elf exudes an unmistakable aura of hostility. Sensing the intruder's intense bloodlust, the apothecary swiftly moves to defend himself. Despite the intruder's aggression, he manages to overpower her. Resser rushes to their side upon hearing the commotion, and to the apothecary's surprise, the intruder's animosity dissipates in Resser's presence. As the tension subsides, he loosens his grip, allowing the intruder to approach Resser. In a sudden turn of events, the intruder breaks down in tears and embraces Resser. It's revealed that the intruder is none other than Idria, Resser's long-lost sister. Idria had been searching for her sister ever since Resser disappeared from their village years ago. As Idria and the apothecary sit down to talk, they both express remorse for their earlier hostile actions, acknowledging their childish behavior. With tensions eased, Idria reveals her true identity as Lemuria Shera Osplum and shares that she hails from a tribe of proud forest-serving bowyers. However, the mood quickly turns somber as Idria discloses her mission: to apprehend the criminal responsible for sharing a secret elven technique with humans. Resser, still unable to recall her past, sadly admits to Idria that she unknowingly spread the secret technique of the elves. Idria's expression shifts to one of deep pain as she grapples with the gravity of the situation. She informs Resser that, as difficult as it may be, she is duty-bound to bring her back for trial for disclosing the sacred elven secret. As the weight of the situation sinks in, the apothecary realizes that he cannot let Resser bear the blame alone for his actions. He volunteers to accompany them to the trial and offer his testimony, acknowledging his responsibility for leaking the secret elven technique. However, Idria informs him that outsiders like him aren't allowed to leave once they enter the village. Despite this obstacle, the apothecary remains resolute in his decision. He made a promise to cure Resser, and he won't abandon her now. Determined to protect Resser from unjust harm, he decides to join them on their journey, even if it means putting himself at risk. Resser is deeply moved by the apothecary's selfless act of kindness. With their plans set, they prepare to depart the following morning alongside Idria. As the morning sun rises, Resser can't help but feel a twinge of sadness knowing that their departure may mark the end of their time in the place she had grown to consider home. Saying goodbye to familiar surroundings and cherished memories weighs heavily on her heart. Idria arrives as planned, revealing their mode of transportation, an unusually large griffin named Grim. Resser is both amazed and apprehensive at the prospect of flying on the back of such a magnificent creature. Grim exudes strength and confidence, seemingly unfazed by the additional weight of 3 adults and their luggage. With everyone aboard, Grim takes to the skies, his powerful wings propelling them forward. As they soar through the air, Resser, the apothecary, and Idria are unaware of the looming presence of another individual who has managed to track their location through the stones the apothecary has been selling. This mysterious figure's intentions remain unclear, but there's an ominous air about him, suggesting that his arrival may spell trouble for Resser and her companions. As the trio continues their journey westward from the workshop, they traverse mountains and valleys until they find a suitable spot to camp for the night. Grim, the griffin, also requires some rest, and they all settle in for the evening. The following day, they arrive at a mountain with a distinctive hole in its center, a sign that they have reached their destination, Elsvaria. Grim returns to his birdhouse, and Idria leads the apothecary and Resser to the local police station to report their arrival. As they enter Elsvaria, the apothecary senses the curious gazes of the other elves directed towards them. Among the crowd, he spots a new arrival, an elf who turns out to be Lemuria's mother, Lamia. Their reunion is emotional, filled with tears and hugs. Lamia is devastated to learn that her daughter has no recollection of her home, but she seems to understand the situation better after inspecting Lemuria closely. The group plans to visit Lamia's house after their stop at the police station, as she wishes to give them something special. However, their plans are interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. It's Shakna, Idria's boss, who questions her absence from the station despite Grim's return. Despite Idria's apologies, Shakna's demeanor towards the apothecary and Lemuria quickly turns hostile. Though faced with Shakna's scornful gaze, the apothecary is grateful for his presence, knowing that Lemuria would struggle to handle the situation alone. As Shakna delivers his harsh verdict, sentencing Idria and the apothecary to death for their association with a human, shock and disbelief wash over them. Idria, in particular, is stunned by the severity of the punishment, never expecting her reunion with her sister to end in such tragedy. Feeling the weight of the situation, the apothecary chooses to surrender, recognizing that attempting to flee would only escalate the danger for everyone involved. Despite his own apprehension, he harbors a glimmer of hope, knowing he has a few tricks up his sleeve for the right moment. For now, though, he and Lemuria accept their fate with a heavy heart, resigned to their impending doom. Led away to the police station, their steps heavy with resignation, they prepare to face the consequences of their actions. The duo finds themselves unexpectedly imprisoned in separate cells, without any questioning, and it's Idria who personally locks their doors. After a few days of confinement, their home is attacked by individuals harboring a deep hatred for elves. Shakna, the chief of police, becomes their first target due to his past actions. In a surprising turn of events, Idria releases the apothecary and Lemuria from prison amidst the chaos of the attack. However, among the attackers, Lemuria recognizes her old kidnapper, and the sight triggers a rush of memories. Overwhelmed, she faints immediately afterward. In the midst of the fight, sustains severe injuries while defending against the intruders. When Lemuria eventually regains consciousness, she discovers a latent power within her right arm, a manifestation of her high elf magic. Using this newfound ability, she channels mana to heal the apothecary's wounds, ultimately saving his life. Despite their initial imprisonment, their actions in defending the elf community against the attackers earn them pardon for their supposed crimes, and they are granted freedom. Furthermore, Lemuria makes the decision to leave her home behind and accompany the apothecary on their journey. As a parting gift, Lemuria's mother presents her with a memento from her late father, a precious elf tear. This tear is revealed to be a crucial ingredient for a potent potion, known as the High Potion, which Adam, their ally, informs them about. However, creating this potion requires specialized equipment and knowledge, requiring another visit to Adam's abode. If all goes according to plan, this high potion holds the potential to restore Lemuria's body to its original state, effectively healing all of her internal damage and ailments. After drinking the high potion, a surge of energy courses through Lemuria's body, and she feels the transformative effects of the potion take hold. Overjoyed by the success of the potion, she embraces the apothecary tightly in her excitement. In this moment of happiness, Lemuria expresses her desire for the apothecary to call her Resser, as a reminder of everything he has done for her. Seizing the opportunity, the apothecary decides to finally reveal his true feelings to Resser. With heartfelt sincerity, he professes his love for her and asks her to stay with him as his partner forever. Overwhelmed with emotion, Resser reciprocates his feelings, declaring her love for him as well. In a tender moment, they share a kiss, sealing their newfound love. As life moves forward, new challenges arise. One day, Idria uncovers the identity of the noble who had bought Resser from the kidnappers, inflicting harm upon her and cursing her. With determination, Idria ensures that the noble faces appropriate consequences for his actions. Upon hearing this news, Resser feels a sense of closure, knowing that justice has been served and she can finally let go of the past. With their past troubles behind them, Resser and the apothecary find peace and contentment in their settled life together. Resser begins using her healing magic to aid others, becoming renowned throughout the village and even transforming it into a bustling town. The apothecary and Resser had a lovely wedding in a tiny ceremony. They were so happy together, and every day, they enjoyed each other's company, doing simple things. Together, they embraced the joys of parenthood, raising children of their own and cherishing the happiest moments of their lives. Their life together was calm and peaceful, with no big surprises. But one day, something unexpected happened. It was New Year's Eve, a special night filled with excitement and celebration. The apothecary couldn't believe his eyes when he saw Resser lying on the bed, wearing some very surprising clothes that were a bit naughty. Despite the initial shock, they ended up having an amazing New Year's celebration together.
Alright, that's a wrap for today. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. And if you're new here, sub before the algorithm forgets I exist. Drop your favorite moment in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.